Hello Summoners, welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Irene and I'm excited to be your host running you through our guide on getting Autofilled. We'll be covering strategies and concepts for you to climb even if you play a role that gets you Autofilled frequently. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and let's get into the video.
The first thing we'll be talking about is some simple, basic information to help you guys out when Autofilled for each role. After this, we do have some more specific tips for you guys. In the top lane, the one thing you need to know is that matchups are very unforgiving. If there's any lane you want to play safe in when uncertain, it's the top lane. Learning to play someone reliable like a tank can alleviate a ton of stress. You don't need to play for solo kills. You'll have agency as long as you don't let your lane opponent get fed. Regardless of who you choose to play, focus on managing waves effectively. Get in the habit of slow pushing and building up big waves so it's harder for your opponents to freeze. It is easy to get ganked as a top laner because you're all alone up there and the lane is long. Also, put more focus on your teleports than on winning your lane. If you can win the map, it doesn't matter that you didn't win 1v1 against your opponent.
I've also got our question of the day for you guys. Which role do you dislike being autofilled into the most? Now personally, I don't like being autofilled in the mid lane. I'm a little rusty at it, and honestly, I'm just not good enough early game on a lot of those champions to really affect the game and then feel like I have agency in it. I kind of suck. So, let's talk about the role I'm actually good at, the jungle.
For the jungle, things can be kind of rough. While you're not laning against someone, your whole team is sort of your responsibility. The most important thing you'll need to think of is what your opponent is going to do. If you're playing a farming jungler, for example, it is imperative that you're prepared to get invaded. Set up wards early and mix up your pathing to not be predictable. You want your enemy to waste time on a bad invade if possible. If you're playing a jungler who needs to be more proactive, think carefully about which lanes you want to impact the most. One easy one to assess is whatever role you main. Look at what the matchup is for your main role and assess how important jungle pressure is for it. If you know it's a high priority, then it's pretty easy. Just go help them. In the case that you know a specific bot lane matchup is a farm fest, for example, you can instead focus your attention mid or top. Now for the mid lane. Our best advice is to focus on clearing waves and not missing minions. I know, it's boring, but let me explain why. The mid laner is the one who will move the most across the map, aside from the jungler. However, junglers can oftentimes be unpunished for their plays. If a jungler successfully ganks bottom, but their direct opponent is also bottom, there isn't much counterplay their opponent has access to. They'd have to walk all the way top to counter jungle or start up Rift Herald. That would take far too long. Anytime a mid laner moves, however, there is always going to be at least one play you can make to punish them, and that is to push and farm. You will always get something back if you push when your opponent roams. They might get more because they could have scored a kill bottom, but the worst possible outcome is you follow them and get absolutely nothing in return. Sometimes we end up in those situations where we do try to follow behind the enemy mid laner and they manage to get to the bottom lane a few seconds ahead of us. Then they score an easy double kill, and at that point you're stuck in the river and have to decide either turn back or dive into a 1v3 situation. However, if you push fast enough, you force your opponent to either commit to their play or return mid. If your jungler is nearby, you can even ask them to help you take down the turret. Again, this is going off of the assumption that you're auto-filled and uncertain about what decision to take. Actively pushing to punish roams is a proactive response and is never the worst choice. In the bottom lane, our best advice is to note this. It is never a 2v2. It might look like one, but you're often going to find out that it's instead a 2v3, 2v4, 2v5, or under unfortunate circumstances, 1v2, 1v3, or 1v5. Whether it's because your support is incompetent or taking a stroll in Narnia trying to collect clips for a montage, you'll sometimes find yourself alone. Knowing this, always play around your vision. Vision is important for any role, but it's arguably the most important bottom because for once, everyone wants you. Unfortunately, it's the people on the enemy team. The enemy top laner somehow always manages to teleport behind you. The jungler wants dragon, and bottom lane ganks are an easy way to achieve this. Sure, the enemy mid laner could roam top for a free kill, but they could roam bottom for 2. There are plenty of certainties in life, and one of them is that you will end up in a fiesta while playing bottom. Be very conscious of when you're pushed up. Focus on playing safe, although being afraid of potentially messing up and dying against your lane opponent is understandable. It's more important to play cautiously against the other 3 players on the enemy team. Support is going to be the role you get autofilled into the most, so focus on getting deep vision. You might have heard advice telling you to roam and not anchor yourself to the bottom, and we don't disagree at all, but a big part of good roams comes from what vision you have. If you blindly make the cross-country run to top, there are going to be times where you can single-handedly win the lane for your teammate. However, if you don't have good vision, it's literally a coin flip. The enemy jungler, mid laner, or both could be planning on ganking the top lane the same time that you're roaming there. If you focus on getting solid vision control on the map, you will always be useful as a support. It gives your other teammates information to work off of and also gives you a better idea of where you need to be. Now let's talk about more specific advice. Learn support, but don't pick it as a secondary. Alright, so this piece of advice is applicable to everyone except support mains. Essentially, this is some min-maxing. You should learn how to play support, but don't pick it as your secondary role. Support is, unfortunately, the least popular role in the game. Most of us know how autofill works. It's implemented to speed up queues so you're not waiting for 20 years to get into a game. You choose a primary role, and if you can't get that, matchmaking tries to get you your secondary role. Sometimes you'll have to play a role you didn't select for either. Once you get this autofill game out of the way, you're guaranteed a selected role for a couple of games. This is why we suggest everyone learn a thing or two about playing support. You can even check out our website ProGuides.com if you want help learning the role. We are offering 20% off subscriptions with the code RANKUP2021. Regardless, learning support will help you become a more well-rounded player and also win more of your autofilled games. You can get autofilled into any role, but support is usually the vacant one. This is also why we suggest not picking it as your secondary. If you queue support secondary, your odds of getting the role are much higher, and you won't be able to get your main role as often. But for those of you who enjoy playing support as your secondary role, I'd still advise against it. The lack of support players will inevitably have you fill that spot more often, and as a result, get your main role less often. At the very least, I'd suggest only picking support secondary when autofill protection isn't on. When you do have it though, try picking a popular secondary role to maximize the odds of you getting your main one. Even if you get your secondary role, if it's mid or bottom lane, you can ask a teammate to swap with you during champion select, and the odds of someone taking it are higher with a popular role. So now let's talk about the mindset you need. Autofilled games are one-on-off roles, so you're obviously not going to perform well. However, your goal should be to win at least 50% of your games. If you can win as many as you lose while autofilled, you break even and can thus win more games on your main role. You'll end up with a net gain in LP, and of course, it's even better if you can be an overachiever and actually win more games than you lose while autofilled. Autofill is inevitable, and while dodging is a solution, you still have to sacrifice some LP to do so. Instead, learning to play well even when autofilled is the ideal solution. To help you with that, what you want to do is one trick or play a very small number of champions in your off roles. Unfortunately, you will get autofilled into any role at some point. Even a popular one like mid or bottom is still fair game. Thus, you'll need to be prepared for these situations. An effective method for climbing is one-tricking, but you can apply this to autofill as well. Spreading your games out on multiple champions means you'll only get a little bit of experience on each of them. Autofilled games are supposed to make up the minority of your games, so you're spreading your few games even thinner. Instead, focus on playing 1 or 2 champions only for each off role. This way, when you do get autofilled, you'll be able to play a champion you're comfortable on. Like we mentioned, that 50% win rate mark is your goal. This is why one-tricking is the move when you're autofilled. Mastering a single champion in each role will allow you to be comfortable carrying games from any role. If you're not doing everything you can to win the games you get filled in, you are hurting your climb. Taking your autofilled games seriously can only help you as a player. It'll develop your game sense. Understanding all roles to an extent can help you make smarter decisions overall. One easy way to start this off is by using experience from your main role to influence your decisions while autofilled. For example, if you main mid, you should have an idea of what you wish your support did for you. You hate it, for example, when the enemy bot lane randomly roams up and kills you. Having no vision in the enemy jungle is a rough time, but when you get autofilled into support, this is all stuff you're aware of. Instead, you could be that annoying support who roams up mid to help them pick up kills. Understanding how difficult it can be to play with no vision, you can be the support that deep wards or buys a pink to place in the bottom river to back up your mid laner. When the enemy bottom lane roams up, you can spam the danger or missing ping to inform your teammates. Developing your game sense is a two-way street though. As you play and understand the other roles a little bit, you'll learn what resources they need as well. While you were auto-filled on support, you might have come to understand that there were things you wish that your mid laners would have done for you. At times, you managed to get the enemy bot lane low and wished that they would come and roam and dive for you. Other times, you were shoved under your turret over and over again, hoping that someone would come and alleviate the pressure. When you start seeing things from the perspective of other roles, you develop a better understanding of how to play your main one as well. One of our in-house analysts applies their knowledge of top lane into the jungle, for example. It's a role heavily influenced by jungle pressure, and playing the lane enough helped them better understand how to effectively swing matchups with early ganks. No matter what role you main, there's going to be something you can learn from playing another. Playing other roles also means that you'll gain experience playing direct matchups against every champion in the game. Like we suggested, you should one-trick or limit your own champion pool when playing off roles. However, limiting what you play does not limit the champions that you play against. Knowing how to play against something is equally as important as knowing how to play the champions that you select. As you play your auto-filled games, take note of the strengths of other champions. You might play a filled mid-game here and there and come to understand that some champions are very weak against dives. When you're on your main role, you can exploit this knowledge next time those sort of champions are on the enemy team.
See, just because you guys get autofilled doesn't mean that you have to dodge. It's still possible to win without losing that unnecessary LP. But anyway, that'll wrap up our autofill guide. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. Make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, and check out our Discord in the link in the description. Now until next time though, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.